What is up, guys? Respect the Read here, guys. I haven't made a video in this channel for pretty long. Check out my Triple Fight channel in the link below. Check out my friend Waterwhale's channel. He just made a channel today. And yeah. So today we are going to read Percy Jackson Part 3. I'm still on Chapter 1, okay, guys. I get it. I'm not professional, okay. I just want to do this for you guys. Like, I just got my bottom braces, so it's really hard to talk. Okay, I apologize for that. Alright, so let's get started. Some of the kids were whispering, "Did you see the water? Like, it grabbed her." I didn't know what they were talking about. All I knew was that I was in trouble again. As soon as Mrs. Dodds was sure poor little Nancy was okay, promising to get her a new shirt at the museum gift shop, etc., etc., Mrs. Dodds turned on me. There was a triumphant fire in her eyes, as if I'd done something she'd been waiting all semester. "Now, honey, I know," I grumbled. "A month erasing workbooks. That wasn't the right thing to say." "Come with me," Mrs. Dodds said. "Wait," Mr. Grover yelped. "It was me. I pushed her." I stared at him, stunned. I couldn't believe he was trying to cover for me. Mrs. Dodds scared Grover to death. She glared at him so hard his whiskery chin trembled. "I don't think so, Mr. Underwood," she said. "But you will stay here." Grover looked at me desperately. "It's okay, man," I told him. "Thanks for trying." "Honey," Mrs. Dodds barked at me. "Now." Nancy Bobofit smirked. I gave her my deluxe "I'll kill you later" stare. Then I turned to face Mrs. Dodds, but she wasn't there. She was standing at the museum's entrance, way at the top of the steps, gesturing impatiently at me to come on. How'd she get there so fast? I have moments like that a lot, when my brain falls asleep or something, and the next thing I've known, I missed something, as if a puzzle piece fell out of the universe and left me staring at the blank place behind it. The school counselor told me this was all part of the ADHD, my brain misinterpreting things. I wasn't so sure. I went after Mrs. Dodds. Halfway up the steps, I glanced back at Grover. He was looking pale, cutting his eyes between me and Mr. Brunner, like he wanted Mr. Brunner to notice what was going on, but Mr. Brunner was absorbed in his novel. I looked back up, but Mrs. Dodds had disappeared again. She was now inside the building, at the end of the entrance hall. Okay, I thought. She's going to make me buy a new shirt for Nancy Bobofit at the gift shop, but apparently that wasn't the plan. I followed her deeper into the museum. When I finally caught up to her, we were back in the Greek and Roman section. Guys, excuse me for a sec. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about the background noise. My dad's friend's son is over, and he's playing with my sister. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize if you guys can hear that. And yeah. God. Okay, where am I? Except for us, the gallery was empty. Mrs. Dodds stood with her arms crossed in front of a big marble frieze of the Greek gods. She was making this weird noise in her throat, like growling. Even without the noise, I would have been nervous. It's weird being alone with a teacher, especially Mrs. Dodds. Something about the way she looked at the frieze, as if she wanted to pulverize it. "You've been giving us problems, honey," she said. "I did the safe thing," I said. "Yes, ma'am." She tugged on the cuffs of her leather jacket. "Did you really think you could get away with it?" The look in her eyes was beyond mad. It was evil. "She's a teacher," I thought nervously. "It's not like she's gonna hurt me." I said, I'll try harder, ma'am." Thunder shook the buildings. "We are not fools, Percy Jackson," Mrs. Dodds said. "It is only a matter of time before we found you out. Confess, and you will suffer less pain." I didn't know what she was talking about. All I could think of was that the teachers must have found the illegal stash of candy I've been selling out of my dorm room. Or maybe they realized I got my essay on Tom Sawyer on the internet without ever reading the book, and now they were gonna take away my grade. Or worse, they were gonna make me read the book. "Well?" she demanded. "Ma'am, Your time is up," she hissed. Then the weirdest thing happened. Her eyes began to glow like barbecue coals. Her fingers stretched, turning into talons. Her jacket melted into large, leathery wings. She wasn't human. She was a shrivelly hag with bat wings and claws and a mouth full of yellow fangs, and she was about to slice me to ribbons. Then things got stranger. Mr. Brunner, who had been out in the front of the museum a minute ago, wheels his chair into the doorway of the gallery, holding a pen in his hand. "What ho, Percy!" he shouted. I tossed the pen through the air. Mrs. Dodds lunged at me. With a yelp, I dodged. I felt talons slash the air next to my ear. I snatched the ballpoint pen out of the air, but when it hit my hand, it wasn't a pen anymore. It was a sword, Mr. Brunner's bronze sword, which he always used on tournament days. Mrs. Dodds spun toward me with a murderous look in her eyes. My knees were jelly. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the sword. She snarled, "Die, honey!" and she flew straight toward me. Absolute terror ran through my body. I did the only thing that came naturally. I swung the sword. The metal blade hit her shoulder and passed clean through her body as if she was made of water. Hiss! Mrs. Dodds was a sandcastle in a power fan. She exploded into yellow powder, vaporized on the spot, leaving nothing but the smell of sulfur and a dying screech and an evil chill in the air, as if those two glowing red eyes were still watching me. I was alone. There was a ballpoint pen in my hand. Mr. Brunner wasn't there. There was nobody there but me. My hands were still trembling. My lunch must have been contaminated with magic mushrooms or something. Had I imagined the whole thing? I went back inside. It had started to rain. Grover was sitting by the fountain, a museum map tented over his head. Nancy Boba Fett was still standing there, soaked from her swim in the fountain, grumbling to her ugly friends. When she saw me, she said, "I hope Mrs. Kerr whipped your butt." I said, "Who?" "Our teacher, duh." I blinked. We had no teacher named Mrs. Kerr. I asked Nancy what she was talking about. She just rolled her eyes and turned away. I asked Grover where Mrs. Dodds was. He said, "Who?" But he paused first, and he wouldn't look at me, so I thought he was messing with me. "Not funny, man," I told him. "This is serious." Thunder boomed overhead. I saw Mr. Brunner sitting under his red umbrella, reading his book as if he never moved. I went over to him. He looked up, a little distracted. "Ah, there will be my pen. Please bring your own writing utensil in the future, Mr. Jackson." I handed Mr. Brunner his pen. I hadn't even realized I was still holding it. "Sir," I said, "where's Mr. Dodds?" "Mrs. Dodds!" Ah! He stared at me blankly. "Who?" "The other chaperone, Mrs. Dodds, the pre-algebra teacher." He frowned and sat forward looking mildly concerned. "Percy, there is no Mrs. Dodds on the trip. As far as I know, there has never been a Mrs. Dodds at Yancey Academy. Are you feeling alright?" Anyways, guys, that will be all for the video. Wow, this chapter was so mysterious. This chapter. Whoa, what happened? What happened to Mrs. Dodds? I wonders. Okay, guys, subscribe, share, and like. Check out my second channel. Check out I'm a Pills channel, aka Waterwhale. Anyways, guys, sub, share, like for future uploads, and stay socially awkward.